Hi all, welcome to the 28th Google class session. So today's class we will be discussing about the joints in rigid payments. And so in the subject of payment design, the fifth module, so we will be dealing with the last topic of this module, that is external conditions, joints, reinforcements, requirements of joints, types of joints and things like that. And so before we go on to the details, already we have discussed some details about the joints. So probably all of you remember that these are the double bars as well as the tie bars that are provided in the in a RCC payment. So basically why do we have to provide a joint? So provision of joints are necessitated in order to account for the expansion, contraction and warping of concrete slabs, and it facilitates a break in the construction of a day's work, because it is not possible to construct kilometers of road in a day, so we may have to break the work, so joints becomes inevitable in that case. And the third case is a case wherein the payments are constructed in lanes of convenient width. So these are the three things which makes a joints inevitable as far as a rigid pavement construction is concerned. And what are the requirements of a joint? A joint must move freely. So because it should facilitate the movement also, it should not restrain the movement. It should not allow infiltration of rainwater and ingress of stone grids. It should not protrude out the general level of the slab. So these are the requirements of a good joint. Now, this slide, in fact, gives you the glimpse of what are the different types of joints and what exactly are they. So broadly, we can classify them as two joints. One is a transverse joints and another one is called as a longitudinal joints. So transverse joints, we classify them into four different categories. They are called as contraction joints, expansion joints, warping joints, construction joints, and finally we also have the longitudinal joints. Now let us deal with the each joint. So transverse joint. So transverse joint, in fact, we have discussed about these contraction joints and expansion joints, especially with the design of the double bar. So contraction joints, as I have told at that time, so this is especially related to the initial curing of concrete, and a proper provision of a contraction joint prevents the formation of shrinkage cracks. And the most important thing is it's always provided at a spacing of 4.5 meter or closer. Suppose we get the spacing as 4.8 meter, we have to restrict that to 4.5 meter. So this is very, very important. And also we have something called a shrinkage cracks. So if at all the contraction joints are provided, we can get rid of the shrinkage cracks. And coming to the expansion joints, so expansion joints are mainly to account for the expansion of the slab, and they are generally provided at intervals of 60 to 120 meter. And this mainly accounts for the seasonal variations in temperature, like summer, winter, and so on. And so double bar systems that are provided in the expansion joints help in the transfer of load. And we have something called as warping joints. So these are also called as hinge joints. So they mainly relieve the stresses due to warping. So already you know that the concrete pavement is subjected to the daily variations in temperature, which instigate the warping stresses in them. So a proper provision of warping joints, we can get rid of that. And it is very rarely provided as such in specific, because the provision of a proper contraction and expansion joint is enough rather than providing a warping joint. And coming to the construction joint, to account for a day's construction work, and it is preferable to merge a day's work with always with an expansion joint. And now coming to a longitudinal joint, it prevents the formation of shrinkage cracks in the longitudinal direction, and they are always provided in multiples of 3.5 or 3.75, which is nothing but corresponding to the lane width. And tie bars are generally provided to hold the bars position. Now contraction joint, so basically this is a contraction joint. So generally whenever we provide a contraction joint, so this is the place where we have the cracks that are likely to develop. So what we generally provide is we will cut it open over here and we provide a sealant. And if you provide a double bar, what happens is like I can show you here. Yeah. So the crack that is formed, we can prevent it from extending throughout the depth of the slab by providing a double bar. As you can see here, so if you provide a double bar, this a full cracking of the pavement we can avoid. Similarly, you can see this is a case. So this is a way in which we have finished the surface, and however, this is the way in which the cracks will be developed. So the full functionality of the pavement will not be lost if you provide a proper contraction joint with a double bar. So then coming to expansion joint, so here you have, so generally for an expansion joint, we normally have a gap between the two pavement slabs, and this gap is filled by a filler, and in between we'll be having our double bar. So normally half of the double bar will be embedded in one slab. So I'm not reading whatever is written here, I'm just explaining so you can listen to that. So we'll be having this double bar. Half of it is embedded within the concrete slab, whereas half of it, what we will do is like we will cover it with a plastic sheet. I have explained about all these sketches in the sessions on the double bars. So we'll be covering it with plastic sheet. The reason why we provide the plastic sheet is because the bar will be prevented in developing a bond with the concrete because of the plastic sheet. And on top of it, we want the slab to move. So for that, what we will do is like we'll provide a metal cap as you can see here, and we will also try to provide a filler material like a cotton over there so that the slab can, as and when the slab moves, so definitely the bar will also be subjected to the movement. So this cotton filling will allow for the provision of the movement of the bar and also for the slab. And so transverse expansion joints are provided, and you can see here the gap that is there, we have to fill it with the filler material, and top will generally provide a sealant. And so these are the general functioning of expansion joints. I'll just read this. Already we have seen all these things. So these are small rounded steel bars are used as double bars. The diameter, length and spacing is based upon the design load. If you recollect, it is based upon 40% of the design load. Half of the double bar is embedded with concrete so as to develop a sufficient bond length. And after the concrete is set, for the other half of the double bar, it is fully covered with a 0.5 mm thick plastic sheet so that there is no bond between the bar and the concrete. The end it is there's a metal cap of length 100 mm with a compressible sponge-like material inside at the closed end to provide the bar with the space to move inside the cap. So this is all what exactly I've told in the previous slide. So the gap is filled with a compressible filler board and the top is sealed with the sealer material. And the functioning of the joint sealer is also presented in the figure here. Yeah. So it is given in the subsequent slide. Now, before we go on to that, we can have three different arrangements of joints. So this is a staggered arrangement, and this is a uniform joint. This is a skew joint. So always when we go for a staggered arrangement, there is a chance for sympathetic cracks. So sympathetic cracks is nothing but it's like a propagating crack because of the discontinuity that is there in the other slab. So because of the joint that is here though there is no joint, a crack will be developed. So this crack is called a sympathetic crack. Similarly, here there is a joint, a crack is developed here, and this is called as a sympathetic crack. And whenever we provide a skewed joint, what happens is like corner cracking is always likely to occur because of the acute corners. And generally we prefer a uniform arrangement. And joint filler, as I have told you, so this is what are the requirements of a joint filler? They are basically looking forward for durability, elasticity, and compressibility. Durability because it should be durable for the adverse weather conditions. Elastic because it should get compressed and it should regain its original shape. Compressibility because it should also be free to compress. Generally, soft wood, fiber board, cork, All these are the materials that are generally used as a filler material. And characteristics are that it should be able to compress to 50% of its thickness without showing more than 3% loss in weight. At the same time, it should have an elasticity such that 70% of its shape is recovered. And extrusion, because whenever it is trying to get compressed, what happens is like sometimes it will be projecting upwards. So that extrusion that is so produced, it should not be more than 6.5 mm when it is compressed by 50% of its thickness. So this is a joint filler. When it is compressed, you can see that the height of the filler will rise. Here you can see that there is a gap. This is because of the winter season, there will be contraction. Now coming to a sealant, so as we all know, what are the properties of a sealant? It should be having, in addition to cement concrete edges, it should be able to extend without fracture. It should prevent the resistance to the ingress of grit and water, then durability. Normally rubber-based bitumen is being used because of its elastic property. So this is a sealant at the time of construction. So during winter, there is a chance wherein the slab will contract and the sealant may break. So this should not happen. So like that, we should design the payment. So similarly, if there is an expansion, what happens? The sealant will try to form a crown on top of this joint, and this also will create lots of discomfort, and it will even cause its what you call wear and tear of that surface. Now the last topic, that is a design of expansion joint. So if at all we are looking for delta, so suppose 2 delta represent the joint width. So normally it is around 2.5 centimeter, 2 to 2.5 centimeter. Half of the joint width is what we consider, because as we know that, I think I have a picture here. Yeah. So we know that if this is a joint, what happens is this side as well as this side, they both will try to have an expansion or contraction to one end. So because of this, what happens is like we need to consider only half of it. We need to only consider half of the length, because half of the length only will be subjected to contractions or expansion towards an end. So that is why we are having delta being referred to as a joint width, half of the joint width. LE is the length of expansion joint, and T2 minus T1 representing the temperature difference. We know that temperature stresses is nothing but temperature deformation due to temperature is nothing but the total length into the temperature change into the coefficient of thermal expansion. So from that I can find out what is the length of the slab, I mean length of the expansion joint, that is by using delta C T2 minus T1. Please note here I have put 100 because this 100 corresponds to conversion of delta to meter. That's the reason. Then so just a simple substitution based problem. See, the width of the expansion joint gap is 2.5 centimeter. So what does it mean? 2 delta is 2.5. And if the laying temperature is 10 degrees Celsius and the maximum slab temperature is 54, calculate the spacing. So you are just asked to find out LE. You are given delta is equal to 1.25. Temperature difference is 54 minus 10, which is 44. And coefficient of thermal expansion is 10 into 10 to the power of minus 6 per degree Celsius, or 10 to the power of minus 5. Just substitute all these things. Just we can pause the video and you can see that the value for LE will be around 28.58. So this is a way in which we try to do the design of expansion joints. Now coming to the design of contraction joints, if W is a unit weight of concrete and LC is the length of the contraction joint in meter and B is the width of the slab, okay, so what happens is like the thermal, in this case, suppose we want to design a contraction joint, as we know that it is basically to withstand the shrinkage cracks. So especially in this case, the frictional force will come into picture. Frictional force, as you know that it will be nothing but weight of the slab into coefficient of friction. So converting this into different units, so you can see that if W is the unit weight in kilogram per meter cube, H is the thickness in terms of centimeter, B is the width of the slab in meters, LC is the length of the slab in meters, and I have to consider only half of the length of the contraction joint, I get it as W into F into H into B into LC divided by 200 is nothing but the frictional force, and this is being withstood by the uh, I can say that by the tensile stress in the concrete. So that is what I have shown here. So SC is the tensile stress of the concrete. Cross section we have to consider, wherein it will be B into H. This is expression already you have seen in the design of tie bars. So please don't think like it's something new. So these two we can equate it. H and B will cancel. Finally, the length of the expansion joint is given by SC into 2 into 10 to the power of 4 divided by W into F, where SC represents the tensile strength of concrete. So keep this in mind. But on the other hand, suppose you have already provided a reinforcement over there. In that case, we have to just find what is the reinforcement area, and that reinforcement will try to resist the friction force. So if SS is nothing but the tensile stress in the steel and AS is its area, and you can find out what exactly is the contraction joint. It's not LE, it is LC. Okay, because length of the contraction joint, and SS may be taken as 1400 kg per centimeter square, assuming it as a plain deform bar, plain bars. Now let us look into two simple problems. So determine the spacing between contraction joint for 3.5 meter slab having a thickness of 20 centimeter and F is equal to 1.5 meter for the following, F is equal to 1.5 for the following two cases. That is plain concrete, SC is equal to 0.8, and for reinforced cement concrete is 1 centimeter dia bars. So how do you do this? It's just substitution of the formula. So just the question itself. So we have already got this expression for contraction joint, right? So this is the expression for contraction joint. SC into 2 into 10 to the power of 4 divided by WF. This is for plain concrete bars. So that is what we are going to use. So 0.8 into 2 into 10 to the power of 4, because 0.8 is the tensile strength of concrete divided by W into F, that is 2400 into 1.5, you get it as 4.4. Now they have also told that it is for reinforced cement concrete and it is 1 centimeter bars at 0.3 meter spacing. So in this case, I should know how many bars are there in that area, right? So since this is being provided in the area of, this is to be resisted by the respect to the width, area of number of bars I have to calculate. Okay, so it is actually not exactly number of bars, it is the area of bars. Okay, it's the area of bars, which is nothing but, why it is 3.5 by 0.3, 3.5 is the width of the pavement and 0.3 is its spacing, into this area, which is nothing but pi into 1 squared by 4, and which is nothing but 9.16 centimeters square. Substitute in this LC equation, you can get it as 10.18 meter. Please pause the video and try to do it. We have one more question, and the maximum increase in temperature is expected to be 26 degrees Celsius after the construction of a cement concrete pavement. If the expansion joint gap is 2.2 centimeter, design the spacings between the expansion and contraction joints. Assume plain cement concrete construction with thermal coefficients equal to 10 into 10 to the power of minus 6 per degree Celsius. Unit weight is 2400 and allowable stress and tension during initial period of curing is 0.8. And the coefficient of friction at the interface is 1.4. So you are asked to design both the expansion and contraction joints. So this is one of the typical problems that generally comes in the exam as well. So first, let me determine the spacing of expansion joint, which is nothing but delta by 100 C into T2 minus T1. So you are given that the gap is 2.2, that is nothing but delta is 1.1, half of it, divided by 100 into C is 10 to the power of minus 5. Temperature difference, they have told directly it is going to be 26 degrees Celsius. So substitute it over here. You get L is equal to 42.3, which is nothing but the spacing of expansion joint. Now coming to the spacing of contraction joint, it is a plain cement concrete slab. So you can use the first equation itself in the previous slide. So that is 0.8 into 2 into 10 to the power of 4 divided by W into F. You get it as 4.76, but you don't have a provision to provide 4.76 because the maximum spacing for contraction joint is 4.5 meter. So restrict it to 4.5 meter. And if you provide 4.5 meter, 10 slabs, 10 contraction joints, it will become 45 meter. It will exceed 42.3, right? As I told you, the expansion joints and contraction joints should be meeting at the common ends. For example, if this is a slab and suppose this is a center line, and you can see here, suppose this is going to be the length of the spacing of contraction joints. So this can become the expansion joint. So you cannot have in between another joint. So this is going to be LC, whereas this is going to be LE. Okay, so because of this part, we require to find out what is the value for LC also. We got it as 4.5. So now LC has to be in multiple, LE should be in multiple of LC, but you cannot take 10 times because it will not be very short. So we can only have a maximum spacing is 42.3. So let us find out for 9 slabs how much it will come. So 9 into 4.5, okay, the number, value will be less than definitely 42.3. So how much it will be coming? It will be coming it as 42 4.5 into 9. Okay, so that will become the spacing for the expansion joint. So this is all that we have for the day, and by this we have almost completed the module, I can say. Probably in the next class I'll show you some reinforcement, and I think only that is there. And reinforcement bar is nothing great to study over there. And normally we provide double bars as well as tie bars, but apart from that we sometimes provide a mesh type of reinforcement. We don't provide the reinforcement like how do we provide in the slabs of the buildings, but instead we will provide reinforcements in the form of a mesh kind of thing, and that will be provided. So I can in fact show you the uh, I'll just show you the reinforcement also.
More than 80 Howey construction expert.
So you can see here, so this is one way in which the reinforcement. So here this is a case wherein both the sides bars are being kept. Okay, so then even we can have a case wherein we'll be having a mesh type of reinforcement. So yeah, so you can see here. So this is a case wherein there will be a mesh type of reinforcement that will be provided, and so this is also another case wherein a mesh type of reinforcement is being provided. Yeah. So this is another. Here also you can see here. So this is also another case wherein the mesh type of reinforcement is provided for the concrete pavement. So this is all that I have for the day, and I think with that I would like to wind up the today's session. And so thank you all for being with me. Thank you once again.